Hello, thank you for joining me here. Today I'll be unboxing something very special, the set of 36 Sennelier oil sticks. It's something I've been excited about trying for years, and I've finally taken the plunge. I just lost my mum a few weeks ago after 4 years of caring for her, and I know she would want me now to get on with life, so I have gifted myself these oil sticks as a symbol of that, and as a thanks to my mum, as she was a creative herself as well. I've chosen Sennelier because there didn't seem to be another choice for me. I've come across them a few times over the years, and they have always been synonymous with quality. Since their founding by Gustave Sennelier in 1887, they've not compromised on that quality one bit. The luminance, the quality of concentration of pigment, and their ingredients used, and the history behind the company itself as well. It's just, beyond compare, really. There are, of course, some amazing companies who do make really beautiful, high-quality goods, pigments and paints, and work really hard at it. But for me right now, it's Sennelier, who started in Paris. And Gustave Sennelier actually began his career as a chemist who originally sold paint made by other manufacturers. But then after a while, he began mixing his own pigments, and he would serve the likes of Cézanne, Gauguin, Van Gogh, and then later on his son also served Picasso when he came to him asking for paints that would take on pretty much any surface without preparing that surface first, which is pretty cheeky because that's quite an ask, but it seems that Picasso was happy with what he got. So yeah, quite a story. I'm just so excited to open these. I have a few little examples of the oil sticks. I started off with the oil pastels, but they unfortunately didn't work for my needs. So oil pastels are actually mixed with a wax, which is non-drying. It's a different type of oil, but the oil sticks can be mixed with oil paint, which is what I wanted. I just wanted sort of a different way of using that paint. And I just can't wait to see what it's like to play with those textures. After this video, I'll also be making a swatching video so that you can see what the texture's like. And I might get some of my other mediums out and see how they work with those. Oh, look at that gold writing embossed on there. How beautiful is that box? Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. I have some really lovely paint materials, but I've never bought a large quantity like this all at once in its own box, so this is super exciting. It's a really lovely quality box as well. And those latches on there are gorgeous. Oh, it all fits together so well. Okay, now's the time for truth. This is such a special moment for me. I cannot wait to get a large canvas out and start playing with these. So the first colour we're going to look at is iridescent white. Now each of these is individually wrapped because they can, obviously they could stick to the foam that they're packed in. But this looks absolutely gorgeous, just to give a little sheen at the last minute, I think, on your painting, or that's what I would use it for anyway. But yeah, it's all really well protected inside there. I don't know if you can see the sheen at all, it just looks white, doesn't it? But I can promise you it's there, gorgeous pearlescent kind of finish. Then we've got titanium buff, which is a really lovely colour, a combination of titanium white and titanium oxide. Great for mixing tints, as it's actually gentler than a bright white and has a more neutral, natural tone. Then we've got titanium white, which was developed in the 1910s as a replacement for the toxic lead white, which, can you believe people used to put that stuff on their faces? But this is a beautiful, really high opacity white, which I use all the time. I get through tubs and tubs of this stuff. It's, yeah, the only white I tend to use. And it's unlike the zinc white that you can also get. It's, much higher in opacity, so it doesn't let the light through as easily, doesn't let other colours through as easily. Then we've got rose ochre light. That's what it is called here. I believe it actually used to be called flesh ochre, which for obvious reasons has rightly been changed accordingly. But it's a lovely kind of light rose colour. Really useful. Then we've got yellow ochre, which you've probably heard of before, even if you're not an artist. It's a really ancient pigment. It's been used since prehistoric times, found all over the world, from sort of southwestern France in the 18th century BC, right through to the Romans and then the indigenous Beothuk people in Newfoundland. And then we've got raw sienna, which is very, very similar to yellow ochre, but it's usually a bit redder in colour. It's different depending on which brand you use though. It's also usually more transparent. Again, the siennas have been around since ancient times and has been found in cave art as far back as 40,000 years ago. There is also a burnt sienna, a reddish version produced by heating the raw colour. Then we've got burnt umber, which is another earth pigment. Really nice, stable, kind of deep reddish brown, which it's just gorgeous for earthy colours, depending on what earth you're painting, obviously. And then we've got red ochre, again, obviously closely related to your yellow ochre. This one dates back to around 300,000 years ago in Africa, the same approximate time that Homo sapiens emerged. It's also been used all around the world. Used on the indigenous flags of Australia, it's been used in Asia and Europe and ancient Egypt. Then we've got Van Dyke Brown, which I actually use a lot. It's really good for mixing and using on its own in my forest paintings and the tree trunks and all that. And mixing with greens, it's really lovely. And then Payne's Grey, another of my favourites, which I've used in watercolour and oils and acrylics, and it's just one of my favourite colours. I can't wait to play with that one later. And this one is what's called Perylene Black. Now it's an incredibly intense black pigment, but it has a green undertone too. I've never used it before, so I'm really looking forward to trying that and seeing how it compares with the usual Mars Black, which is quite a basic kind of like charcoal black. I've never noticed any other colours within it. But yeah, I will show you that when I do the swatches and see how they compare. Next, we've got our lovely greens. Now, this really natural chrome oxide, which actually is not natural in most cases, but can be found in nature in chlorite veins in some rocks. But it just makes such a lovely leafy green. So yeah, it's really enjoyable to use that one. Then they've got a lovely bright yellow green, which is wonderful for brightening up your greenery, obviously. And then this permanent green, which has sort of more of a touch of blue in it, just a little bit. So we're coming away from the yellows again now. And then further from the yellows, a lovely cobalt green. And we've got a cobalt blue up there as well. And then one of my favourites to add to skies actually is turquoise blue. I tend to mix turquoise and teals with all sorts in my paintings. Then we've got a lovely cerulean blue, which the name actually comes from Latin, from ceruleus, meaning dark blue or sky, dark sky blue, from the words heaven or sky, which is just beautiful. And here we've got a gorgeous, really, well, bluey blue, your primary blue, where it hasn't got any yellow pigment or green, or it doesn't lean towards one or the other. If you put it against the cerulean, you can see that cerulean's a little bit yellower. And then again, if you put it against the one above that, which is your cobalt blue, that one is slightly more reddish in tone. Now, the word cobalt comes from the Middle High German word cobalt, which means an underground goblin, because they used to think that when found in the mines was detrimental to silver, that it would ruin the silver that was down there. So I found that really fascinating. And that's a lovely, this is what I would use for a blue sky. If you had to use one colour for a blue sky, it would be this one in the middle of summer with the white clouds up there and maybe a seagull or something. But it's such a gorgeous colour. And this is another of my favourites. It looks so dark here, you can hardly see it, but it's such an intense ultramarine, which is originally from the lapis lazuli stone, ground down into pigment. And that was so expensive. Well, it still is, because it's only found in a couple of places in the world. And absolutely gorgeous, intense colour. Then there's Prussian blue, which actually replaced lapis lazuli as a much cheaper pigment and was first synthesised in Berlin in the early 18th century. I'm really glad they've wrapped these up separately, because otherwise they would stick to the foam terribly. But this is manganese violet. It's a gorgeous colour. I really love it. But historically, many artists have not really liked to use it because they found it dull, and it can have a bit of a dampening effect depending on what you're going. Okay, we're getting into the reds now. This one is carmine red. And when it's down on the surface, it's a really lovely deep ruby kind of colour. Really lovely if you need like a reddish shadow on something. And we're going a little bit brighter here. Purple cadmium red. You used to have to be really careful with all the cadmiums because cadmium itself is a heavy metal and is toxic. But the recent pigments are not toxic because the levels of cadmium in them are so low. But yeah, don't go snacking on it. This is a really lovely colour, Helios purple. Now, Helios was obviously the god of the sun in ancient Greece and is an amazing bright pinkish purple, which I would probably call magenta, I guess. And then next, you've got your really basic primary red. Not particularly yellowish or bluish, but brilliant for mixing if you want just a really reliable flat red. This one you can see is more yellowish. It's going towards the oranges. Cadmium red light. Gorgeous, bright pigment that I would use for highlighting reds. And then we go even brighter on the red spectrum. This French vermilion. Now, vermilion was originally taken from the pigment cinnabar, which was a really bright scarlet ore. And it unfortunately often over time darkens when it's put on a surface, which might be due to light decomposition. And then we've got another cadmium. This is cadmium orange, which again, don't eat it because it is a toxic heavy metal. And I will still be using gloves when I eventually break this out to use it. And then we've got our cadmium yellow deep, it's called. Now, I suppose I should mention cadmiums are really only seen as being dangerous when they are inhaled in powder pigment form, but when they're sort of locked away in oils and sticks like this, there's next to no problem. Okay, we've got primary yellow here, so again, if you want to mix a pure yellow just like the pure blue and pure red, we'd use this one. Then you're not going to get any muddy colours. Then we've got an even brighter yellow, cadmium yellow light, which is a lovely bright sunny colour. You can compare it to the cadmium yellow deep there. So that's basically the same chemical compound, but just treated slightly differently. Now, I'm not a chemist, so I don't know exactly how differently. Apparently Bob Ross used cadmium yellow quite frequently. And then we've got Naples yellow, which is a beautiful pale yellow and actually one of the earliest synthetic pigments, and has been found as early as the 16th century in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. And then much later on in the 16th century, it was used in pottery glazings and enamels in Italy, obviously near Naples, which is where it got its name. And this last one is actually a medium, which you can sort of mix it with the other colours to increase their transparency. It doesn't have a colour, or you can use it as a glaze, so you can thin out a colour and just put it on as thinner layers on top of your main picture to bring out certain colours, but without compromising the details and shapes underneath, if that makes sense. And that is all of the colours we have here. I cannot wait to break each of these out, which I will do for you soon. So do join me in the next video where I will be unwrapping these, and then I will also be swatching them. Thanks so much. Bye.